My call to ministry. So where do I start? Anyways, I've been involved with working with young people for a long time. Even when I was in high school, I was involved in the whole Nancy Reagan Just Say No. Well, not her organization specifically, but just that whole Nancy Reagan generation. I am a product of, to be sure. And when I went to college, studied psychology and communications, and worked for a couple of years in that field, a psych facility for children and adolescents, and somehow you could just see things moving in that direction. And after I got kind of, not disillusioned, but just really didn't like the whole psychological setting and the fact that it just really was a very impersonal, being a psychologist is a very impersonal thing, surprisingly enough. And so I decided I wanted to try something else. So maybe I'll go into ministry, maybe I'll go into medicine. So that's kind of a long story, but anyways, in the process of going back to school, I found myself looking for a situation where I wouldn't have to pay rent and I could save more money. So where I was headed to, the dean of the guy's dorm was like, "Hey, I know somebody. I got this place where I can, if you want to save some money this summer, my student dean was going to be a youth pastor for the summer, out in Western Washington, out by Portland, Oregon. You wanna do it because I can't let him go." And so I head out there. I'm like, be a youth pastor? I don't know anything about it, but we can give it a shot. So I headed out to Western Washington, and I'm out there, and I can work with young people, so that's what I decided to do. And there I am, just kind of showing up at the church. "Hey, I'm your new youth pastor for the summer." And they're like, "Oh, great," so on and so forth. And so we get together with all the kids and everything, and start to make our plans. And for whatever reason, God literally only knows why and how, but for whatever reason, there is this sudden rush of organization that comes into my brain, and I start organizing all these activities for the young people. We're going to do this, we're going to go that, we're going to take a trip here, we're going to go see a baseball game, we're going to do this and that. And things started to go really, really well, and it just, and the kids responded well. And one day, the senior pastor of the church, he's gathered in the office, and the kids and I had just gotten back from one of our outings on the weekend, a Sunday afternoon, I think. And he's like, "Dean, you're doing a great job. You would make a wonderful pastor." And I looked at him, and I laughed in his face. I literally laughed at the man. "Pastor? What do you mean a pastor?" So anyways, I laughed at the man in his face, in front of everybody else. But we just continued on. But over the course of the summer, I just found myself enjoying more and more what I was doing, working with these young people, taking them to spiritual events and outings, and just fun stuff too. We went to see a Mariners game and all kinds of stuff. And I remember specifically at one point in time, I had taken them to a big religious music festival called Jesus Northwest, and they just all the religious bands were there, and they were playing, and names that, well, you're a holy roller, so you might remember some of the people. Jeff Moore from Jeff Moore in the Distance, and Newsboys were there, and a whole bunch of other people. And they had this building. There's this ministry called For Youth Pastors Only, and so they had their own little area. They had this big room, and they had this bookstore that they had set up, and so anybody could go in the bookstore and buy these youth materials. But in order to get into the big the gathering room, they had this big gathering area where they did interviews, and people. It was like a coffee shop kind of a thing, and that's where all the youth pastors gathered, and you had to be a youth pastor to go in. So I'm like, well, I'm not a youth pastor forever, but I am for this summer, so I'll go in because I'm technically a youth pastor. So I go in, and I'm beginning to rub shoulders with other of the youth pastors, and they're like, hey, what's your name and what church are you at? And I'm like, hi, I'm Dean Carlisle. I am the youth pastor at the Riverside Seventh-day Adventist Church. And they tell me where they were from, and we'd talk and stuff and this and that, and hey, what's going on, and what'd you think of the concert, so on and so forth. And with every conversation and with every youth pastor that I met and every introduction, I could feel myself just sticking my chest out just a little bit more. Very, very proud of the fact that I was the youth pastor of the church. And I remember just thinking that weekend, this is really great. We're going out here, we're listening to the Newsboys sing, we're having fun. And I was just thinking, man, I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. This is really kind of cool. And so, not really thinking much about it, but weekend's over, and I head back, head back home on Sunday evening and get ready to do my laundry, getting ready for the week. And to this day, I can still remember exactly where I was. I was down on one knee, putting my wet, clean clothes into the dryer. And all during that time, I'm thinking, wow, what a great weekend. That was really cool. I had a blast. Kids had a blast. It's been a great weekend. And just was thinking about how much I was enjoying what I was doing. And at that very second, literally, with my wet clothes halfway into the dryer, my right knee on the ground, my left knee, kind of holding up my clothes, I'm putting my clothes into the dryer, and God speaks to me almost audibly. He's, I just hear this voice in my head, and all he says is, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. And from that moment on, in the time that it takes to put your wet clothes into the dryer is the time that it took for me to change from being pre-med to being a ministry student. And I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I put my clothes into the dryer, closed the door, threw the laundry sheet in there, closed the door, turned it on, and started to make my plans to go into ministry. And that's how it happened.